Kidnapping of a child is one of the greatest nightmares for any parent, but it seems this time around justice has been served. The High Court in Pretoria recently sentenced a Nigerian national to 3 life terms for human trafficking, rape, statutory rape and sexual exploitation. Augustine Omini Obono kidnapped a young girl, fed her drugs and forced her to have sex with up to 6 men a day. This over a 3-month period. Now, some areas are known for being hotspots for such activities, but the question is, are authorities doing enough to protect children from sexual exploitation? To find out, I'm now joined by advocacy and lobby group Molo Songololo Director. That's Mr. Patric Solomons, who joins me at this point. Mr. Solomons, thank you so much for your time and a very warm good morning to you. This is an isolated incident that we've learned about. A conviction is there. Justice has been served. 3 life terms, I understand, for Mr. Augustine Omini Obono. But it seems this is not the only case we're seeing in South Africa. There are many such a case. How rife is this type of, child sex trafficking sort of criminal activity in South Africa?
Well, good morning to you and to your listeners. And yes, from our side, we welcome the sentencing. We do believe that, our courts are taking these kinds of cases very, very seriously. We have quite extensive laws to address these kinds of cases when they occur. And then, of course, also we have a very sort of extensive policies for prevention and early intervention. Unfortunately, we still find that, we really don't know how big the problem is, because such kind of cases are very, very complex, and often we only find out about it after the child has been abused, exploited, and then it's often also after in some cases, it's a few years later when the child or the person is already an adult when we find out about these cases. And in very, very few cases, we are able to, expose when it's just about to happen, when the child just about disappeared, or the child even has been exploited, trafficked and exploited, and is in the process of being exploited and trafficked.
Yeah.
And then in cases like that, often it takes a lot of intelligence by the police. Of course, it starts off by a report by maybe a member of the public that reports it, and then the police then investigate it. And a raid may be done on the facilities, certain places, and then, of course, the child might be rescued. So it is quite complex. The reported cases, we have, some idea of the reported cases, and there's a few cases at the moment on the court roll.
Right.
From my knowledge, what I know, there's about 16 that I know of. That's on the court rolls being investigated at the moment in South Africa that relates to trafficking in persons.
Right.
But it's still very complex to address these cases, to prosecute these cases. Often sometimes take a long while to do so.
I need to jump in there and talk about some of the complexities, if you may allow me, Mr. Solomons, because I think we've heard even on social media, South Africans identifying some of the hotspots with which they witness some of these activities. You look at Sunnyside, you look at Hillbrow, Yeoville, parts of Durban CBD, Cape Town CBD, where drugs are rife, child sex trafficking is rife, human trafficking is rife. Has there ever been a more preventative approach from law enforcement authorities as opposed to a more reactionary one, waiting for a report to come, waiting for someone to come to the SAPS? Do they raid these buildings, which are popularly known to host some of these criminal activities?
Yes, there is interventions that is happening. There's a national task team, there's some provincial task teams. Some of the provincial task teams against trafficking in persons, against trafficking children, are operating, and some of them are quite successful. And when there's reports, they normally go and try and do their intelligence, do their information gathering, and then try and make an intervention. However, it's not very easy for the police just to go and raid a place. They have to get all their information together. They've got to get a court order, for example, for the raid. And a whole range of things have to happen. And yes, I know the public sometimes is very, very frustrated because they don't see that something is being done about it. And I think it's at the level of early intervention and prevention that we can do much, much more.
Right.
I think we need to be able to make sure that our awareness campaigns are more effective, that there's better cooperation and systems in place for those prevention activities so that we can do early detection work, for example.
Right.
And that also our reporting are more effective. Often people report, but we don't give proper information. Right. And therefore, our police is already quite overextended. These cases normally go to specialist units, for example, like the Child Protection Unit, or other specialist units that deals with gangsterism, for example, drugs. And it's mainly sometimes through those operations where they go, where they have operations concerning possibly guns and drugs and prostitution.
We have to leave it there.
That the police might come across a person who's still a minor.
Thank you so much, Mr. Solomons. We have to leave it there. Thank you so much for joining us in your time. Unfortunately, we are short for time, but point taken there about some of the interventions that we're seeing there from law enforcement and also the role, I suppose, that the public plays in identifying some of these hotspots.